On last week's Monday Night Raw review, I did mention the fear that a lot of fans had that with Paul Heyman leaving the executive director position, we were going to see a lot of returning legends, big names, and a lot of people who were getting pushed having the rug pulled out from under them. This week, Bruce Pritchard scripted everything personally, or at least oversaw everything personally, and a lot of those fears were unfortunately confirmed. Please take a moment to click like, and I'll get started going through what happened on Raw. We started out with a very long hype package detailing the Championship Monday concept that they are currently playing with. There were 6 matches on the card, 5 of which were for championships and 4 of which were advertised in advance. The last one featured a bit of late editing, unfortunately, due to a wrestler deciding not to attend the taping when it was happening due to the coronavirus being confirmed the day before, on the day when this was actually taped. You're going to see a lot of recaps used throughout the show. It did seem like they were trying to desperately pad the time at some points. Some recaps we've seen before, some recaps of earlier in the night. There did seem to be a worry that they were not retaining viewership. And with a Championship Monday show like this, and all the legends being used and veterans as it were, this was definitely an attempt at ratings grab. We started the show with Drew McIntyre, our current WWE champion, coming down to the ring. It was his only appearance of the night and he did not wrestle, which is unusual for Drew McIntyre. He was interrupted by Dolph Ziggler, formerly of SmackDown Live, now together with Robert Roode, who is not right now available and cannot actually get into the country to perform. He is the trade for AJ Styles. He goes to Raw, Styles went to SmackDown. This seems like a bit of a late decision, I have to say. However, these two do have a lot of history, and Dolph Ziggler walked in, did a whole lot of rhetoric, and immediately got a title shot at Extreme Rules. Why is it always Dolph Ziggler? This exact same thing seemed to happen this time last year with Kofi Kingston. Dolph Ziggler seems to be the backup option for a lot of things. I don't think that's entirely fair on Dolph, to be honest. I would love Ziggler to get a real storyline of his own where he's not putting other people over, but he has worked extremely hard for a number of years to be that veteran putting people over. Credit to Dolph. I'm not sure this feud is going anywhere long term. I think this is once again just a filler feud now that Jinder Mahal is not available. For SummerSlam, of course, the plan does seem to be Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar in a rematch. After this, Nia Jax claims the ring for her own and refuses to move in a good old-fashioned sit-in, which I don't think we've seen in quite a while now. I think Dean Ambrose was the last one, curiously, given their history. She is interrupted. You're going to hear me say that phrase so many times tonight, and of course, if you're a WWE fan, you know how often people get interrupted and get their interruption interrupted. But she is interrupted by R-Truth, who comes down to challenge her because she is clearly Akira Tozawa in disguise. Akira Tozawa then appears because apparently this was supposed to be the 24/7 championship match. That match does not happen because R-Truth is chased off by ninjas. The ninjas really didn't feature much in their usual thing. There was no big ninja and there was no interaction with the Viking Raiders or the Street Profits, so the ninjas now seem to be entirely the domain of R-Truth. That's a pretty big change. You would think at this point Nia Jax would return to her sit-in. Unfortunately, she's interrupted, and the previous interruption is dealt with, and now we have an interrupt to that interrupt, but not to that interrupt because the previous interruption has already been interrupted and moved on. Charlotte Flair came down, essentially, is what I want you to take from that. She came down because apparently with the 24/7 championship match not happening, her match with Asuka will be happening first. Charlotte and Nia have a bit of a slanging match. It is the usual, oh but your daddy. Getting a bit sick of hearing that tired old excuse. And then Charlotte Flair punches Nia Jax in the face and gets injured for her attempts and for her efforts. Once again, I have to question whether the WWE are trying to change the Google rankings for the phrase Nia Jax injures a wrestler. Have to question it. Really do. With Charlotte suffering a kayfabe injury and Nia Jax nowhere to be seen now that her sit-in is apparently over, the first match ends up being the third choice, which is the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. It is well into the hour by this point when we actually get some wrestling. They recap the entire feud so far again. I think we could fill an entire show now with the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. This has just kept going, and it's added more and more to the recap. I don't need to see the whole thing, WWE. What I will say though is that the match was fantastic. The two teams connected in the backstage area beforehand to reinforce the friendship they've developed. They then went into the ring and it was a very good match. Hot start, high intensity, and there was a lot of mirror spots where the wrestlers would mirror each other. That's a good way to connect. The crowd that they had was actually quite hot for it, which is exciting considering they spent a lot of that day standing around waiting for filming to start and hoping to get their coronavirus tests back. So everyone, to my knowledge, has come back clear, which is a very good thing, apart from the initial positive that triggered this whole series of events. Match was very good, Street Profits with a clean win, and once again afterwards they reinforced the friendship, the losing team celebrating with the winning team. The final section of this segment saw Andrade and Angel Garza come down, interrupt the celebration. Once again, I'm using that word, interrupt. Beat up the Street Profits for a little bit. The save came from the Viking Raiders, and Andrade and Angel Garza lived to see another day. We definitely need new blood in the Raw Tag Team division. Andrade and Angel Garza are currently available. Why not? What I will say is this says bad things about two more teams that were supposed to be involved a little bit more, Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, and Vink and Thorne, who have vanished off the face of the earth apparently. But at least we got one more team involved. Backstage, Seth Rollins cuts a promo and threatens the Mysterios, who will be there at Raw later on in the night. Why they've decided to come all the way down to Raw and don't expect to get attacked by Seth Rollins, that's never really made clear. We get a recap of what happened between Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair. It happened about half an hour beforehand. Yeah, they really don't think anyone watches Raw for a long time anymore, do they? Charlotte Flair was interviewed in the back by Charlie Caruso, who suggested that maybe she should postpone the match. Charlotte refused. Charlie then pivoted from her interview with Charlotte to an interview with Angel Garza. And Garza cut a bit of a promo. Andrade and Zelina Vega were there too, but they sort of faded into the background. It became very difficult to focus because of all the sexual tension. Asuka versus Charlotte Flair is a high quality match, as I'm sure we have all come to expect by this point. We've seen a lot of these recently, however, a very different finish for this one. I want to say Asuka got a clean win, however, massive asterisk. They were constantly working submissions, Charlotte's arm was constantly under some sort of torque, and eventually she did tap out. They celebrated like it was a huge moment for Asuka, but there will always be an asterisk on this one. Genuinely. I don't know if I know how to say the word asterisk. I said it different all 3 times at this point. I'm just going to give up and move on. Backstage once again, Nia Jax underlines her earlier attack on Charlotte Flair and adds a little bit more of a threat. Later in the night she would attack Charlotte Flair, and rumour is this is a storyline write-off to put Charlotte Flair off of TV until possibly as late as the Royal Rumble. I can't personally see her staying away that long, however Sasha Banks certainly stayed away for a long time as well. So they are more open to mental health breaks at the moment. Whether or not this is that, I don't know. This of course could be related to COVID-19 and the results there. She may simply not wish to be there at the moment. There is also a suggestion that she is looking to go away and get some surgery done, which I'm not entirely sure of the details of what that surgery could be. However, if there is a long-term niggling injury, I do wish Charlotte all the best. The plan, of course, was to have her work with NXT much more long-term. She was brought in to cover for Becky Lynch when Becky Lynch announced she was pregnant, and really it's quite confusing at this part because things have clearly changed in a short period of time. What will happen with the women's division now that Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair are not present? Certainly nothing like was supposed to happen right after WrestleMania. We get a recap of Randy Orton's feud with Edge and Christian, and then Edge cuts a promo which I implore you to go out and watch. It is a very good promo. It is entirely in the dark, well, not entirely in the dark, there's a spotlight on him, and he is sat in a ring addressing the fact that he is injured. He has his arm taped up and bandaged to really drive that home, but he is still planning to come after Randy Orton. Because this injury is unrelated to his previous one, which took him out for 9 years, there are no risks at the moment that Edge will choose to go back into retirement, to my knowledge. From what I'm hearing, the company will just take the dates that he was scheduled to perform 2 more wrestling matches this year and attach them onto the dates he is scheduled to perform next year when he is expected to be back. So instead of 5 matches next year, we will get 7 Edge matches next year. Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, the list goes on. Let me know in the comments who you want to see Edge face. R-Truth is once again supposed to take on Akira Tozawa, however Bobby Lashley decides to get involved first and really put to bed, I'm guessing, his feud with R-Truth. And of course put to bed R-Truth as well, who was knocked completely clean out, allowing Akira Tozawa to sneak in like a ninja and spirit away the 24/7 championship. We have a new champion and Akira Tozawa did it all on his own, no big ninjas involved. Backstage, Natalya talks about Becky and Charlotte no longer being available and the intention that she has to step up and become the real leader of the Raw locker room. I'm not personally sure turning Natalya heel makes the most sense right here. They could use some heels that they have. For example, Shayna Baszler. You remember her? I sometimes forget. It's a real shame. Bianca Belair as well. I mean, she's not a heel to my knowledge, but she's there apparently. Ruby Riott? We did see Ruby Riott a bit later. Liv Morgan is a challenger to Natalya, and Lana is now full-term in Natalya's corner. This could be as part of a tag team, or it could simply be as part of an opportunity given Natalya is a great trainer and someone great to travel with. It could be that the intention is to get Lana back in the ring, and with this in mind, Natalya is the perfect person to travel with. The match itself is not really worth talking about. Natalya gets an easy win. Liv Morgan never really looks like threatening. And Natalya holds on to the sharpshooter a bit too long afterwards as well, really trying to drive home the fact that we're supposed to boo her now. Also the crowd boo her, which is a good way to give it away. Liv Morgan gets another loss on what's becoming a really quite strong losing streak. However, Ruby Riott tries to reach out backstage, which is suggesting that Ruby may be abandoning the whole heel thing. We may see a Riott Squad reunion, and that I feel will be a good thing for Liv Morgan, but a shame given that her singles run I felt was starting to really build pace and momentum. I did report on Sportskeeda recently that 2 weeks ago Liv Morgan had a vignette pulled at the very last minute. It is clear to me that Vince McMahon wanted to go in a very different direction to what Paul Heyman wanted to do with Liv Morgan. Hopefully, regardless of all this, she succeeds in everything they give to her. Ric Flair opens up the third hour by hyping up Randy Orton and calling him the greatest performer in the history of the WWE. So not the greatest wrestler ever then. Of course, by saying in the WWE, he leaves room for the actual greatest wrestler in the world in another promotion, which is of course Toru Yano. Kazuchika Okada's alright, I guess. Orton's celebration would be interrupted by the real best in the world, The Big Show. I couldn't even get to the end of that joke. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of The Big Show. He seems like an absolute great person and he's done very good things in his time at WWE. But my word, is there a lot of back and forth heel face, and my word, does he have absolutely no chance of winning this one. It's another legend for Randy Orton to kill. Wow, that is a dark phrase when you actually think about it. Sasha Banks and Bayley on Raw this week and undoubtedly on SmackDown this week as well, possibly even on NXT this week. Who knows? I'd be okay with it. Get a very conclusive win over the Iconics. I do feel at this point the Iconics are going to have to go back into the whole general population, and hopefully they'll start a feud with either a Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott or Bianca Belair to give them something to do, because at the moment they seem like they might drop off the face of the planet as well, and I hope that's not the case. I feel they've really improved and shown so in these tag title feuds that they've been having. After the match, Sasha Banks makes it clear that she is challenging for the Women's Championship. She looks Bayley dead in the eye and challenges Asuka. Good segment, really liked it. Plays up on a lot of the fear of the fans. One, that they will break up, and two, that they will not break up. Good play. They're really overdoing it, and I feel that when the breakup eventually does happen, they won't have mentioned it for a couple of weeks to prepare. Asuka, in response to the challenge, comes down to the ring, gets a bit beat up for her trouble. It's not the cleverest thing she's ever done. What I will say is, if the match is so far organised for Extreme Rules, what do we have? Randy Orton and Big Show? Take it or leave it. Ziggler against McIntyre. It'll be a high quality match. Asuka versus Sasha Banks. Now you're talking. Very excited for this one. As Raw drastically begins to run out of time, we have a VIP lounge segment featuring Apollo Crews. MVP tries to recruit Apollo Crews again, and Apollo Crews says no. I have to give Crews credit here. One of the issues that he did have when trying to connect with the audience previously is a lack of personality, which his character just doesn't seem fully formed. And I say that as someone who was very familiar with him and his work in a local promotion here, Preston City Wrestling, where he was a champion for a while. I know he can do it. I just hope he's given more opportunities to do so. I feel he acquitted himself very well here. He is eventually attacked by Shelton Benjamin. We have a rematch there that Apollo Crews wins in quite short order. He is then attacked by Bobby Lashley, who seems to be doing that a lot recently. Apollo Crews is laid out. It's a good move for Lashley. After losing the WWE Championship match, he could now move into the United States Championship, and I feel that will do good things for the belt and for Lashley. However, it would do bad things for Apollo Crews, who's only just got this opportunity. Something I do want to point out is that this particular segment was quite hastily rewritten when it became clear that Kevin Owens was not going to be in attendance for this Raw taping. He was supposed to be involved in this segment. Unfortunately, that was not the case. As you might expect, I give Kevin Owens all the credit in the world and wish him all the best. I think he has made the right choice for him, and of course he is the person who will tell you whether it is the right choice or not. I do believe that we will see him again soon when things have eventually blown over, but at the moment, especially in Florida, things are not blowing over anytime soon. So it may be a while before we see Roman, Sami, or Kevin Owens. I suspect more names will be added to that list shortly. For our final segment, once again it's only given between 5 or 8 minutes, the two Mysterios come down to the ring to talk. Why they couldn't just do this at home, I'll never know. But Rey essentially tells off his son for coming to Raw and picking a fight, but he's impressed that his son was able to escape. I mean, it was an impressive escape, but that's not really something to be celebrating, I don't feel. They eventually decide that together they're going to beat up Seth Rollins, and are surprised when Seth Rollins has backup. But okay, I'm going back to the interruption thing, because Seth Rollins interrupts the Mysterios. The Mysterios interrupt Seth Rollins to try and attack Seth Rollins, but the attack is interrupted by Murphy and Theory, and that Murphy and Theory are then interrupted from the attack, which interrupted the interrupt, by Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo. Right. The fight goes in the faces' favour, but their attack is then interrupted by the heels, who are eventually interrupted by the faces and then interrupted by the heels. Seth Rollins attempts to blind Dominic Mysterio, much like he did to Rey Mysterio, but that is interrupted by the faces, who eventually stand tall. WWE. It's crazy. A lot of interruptions. That is how we close this show. I do believe that this was a very good Raw. They leaned heavily on some big names and the match quality was very high. However, some of the editing I feel needs to be questioned, and I feel we needed a bit longer from our matches. They're getting very short and quite Attitude Era style. We had a lot backstage, a lot. But to be fair, this may come down to the fact that they did have to interrupt filming on several occasions, and they did have to rewrite quite a lot. Charlotte Flair will be a big miss if she does take quite a significant time away. What I will say is that some of the feuds going forward to Extreme Rules are not particularly exciting, however they will be saving the big matches for SummerSlam. My Twitter poll for Monday Night Raw gave this installment a 53% good rating and afterwards a 22% great rating. That is 73 or so percent in favour of this being a positive show. Okay and bad was very low. The bad rating was only 6%, which is very good, I feel, considering a lot of fans are just not enjoying the product at the moment. I don't feel they'll be able to keep this momentum, especially the fact that they are leaning on so many big names. Long term, you have to make new stars. If they can stick it out with Apollo Crews, Liv Morgan and the like, they'll be onto something. The absence of Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair will be a positive for Bianca Belair, Natalya, Lana, for example. The women's scene will improve when it comes to new talent, but it will get less eyes and potentially less high quality matches, unfortunately. We'll have to see going forwards, but for now, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like. I've been Tom Colahue, and I'd like to thank you very much for joining me.